The morning started with music. Not the loud kind that shakes the roof, but the sweet village kind. Women singing in the compound, pots clanging in the kitchen, children running around with meat pies in their hands. Everybody was happy because today was Amaka's wedding day. In our village, people had waited years for this wedding. Not because Amaka was rich, not because the groom was a chief, but because their love story had survived too much. 2 broken families, 3 years of separation, a terrible accident, and 1 stubborn mother-in-law who nearly destroyed everything. But somehow, they still found their way back to each other. So that Saturday morning, the whole community woke up early. The decorators arrived before sunrise. The cooks were already sweating beside giant pots of jollof rice. Even the village pastor wore his best white suit. Everybody was ready, except the bride. At first, nobody noticed. They thought Amaka was inside her room preparing. You know how brides behave. Too many emotions, too many makeup artists, too many friends shouting, "Don't cry, oh, your husband will still see you." But by 8 a.m., something felt wrong. The makeup artist came outside looking confused. "She's not answering." One of Amaka's cousins laughed. "Maybe she's praying." Another knocked on the door harder. Still nothing. That was when the anxiety started. Her mother walked quickly toward the room. "Amaka, open this door." Silence. Now everybody was gathering outside. The music slowly stopped. Even the children noticed the tension. One uncle forced the door open, and there she was, sleeping peacefully on the bed, still wearing her night wrapper. Phone beside her. No makeup, no wedding dress, nothing. Just sleeping. At first, everybody became angry. "Wake her up! What kind of nonsense is this? Does she know people came from Lagos?" But when her mother touched her shoulder, Amaka didn't move. Her mother shook her harder. Still nothing. Fear entered the room immediately. Someone brought water and splashed it on her face. Nothing. One auntie started praying loudly. Another person shouted, "Call a doctor." Within minutes, confusion swallowed the entire house. The groom, Chika, arrived during the chaos. Still smiling, still excited. Poor man had no idea his wedding was turning into a nightmare. When they told him what happened, his smile disappeared instantly. He rushed into the room. "Amaka." He touched her face gently. Cold. Not dead, but strangely cold. Then, something happened that nobody could explain. Amaka suddenly whispered, very softly, "Don't let him take me." Everybody froze. "Who?" Chika asked quickly, but she didn't answer. She fell silent again. The room became uncomfortable. You know that kind of silence that makes your chest heavy? That kind. Then the oldest woman in the family spoke quietly. "We need to call Mama Nkiru." Immediately, some people protested. "No, not that woman again. She's a witch doctor." But the old woman shook her head slowly. "This is not ordinary sleep." Now, let me tell you something about African villages. There are things people pretend not to believe during daytime, but at night, everybody fears them. Mama Nkiru arrived an hour later. Tiny old woman, bent back, white cloth tied around her waist. The moment she entered the room, her face changed. She looked at Amaka for a long time without speaking. Then she asked one question. Who gave the bride a gift last night? Everybody looked at each other. Then Amaka's younger sister remembered. A woman came yesterday evening. What woman? We don't know her. She said she was an old friend. Mama Nkiru closed her eyes immediately. That was not a friend. The room became cold. Even the groom looked frightened now. Mama Nkiru brought out a small calabash and began whispering prayers. Then suddenly, Amaka screamed. Not normal screaming, the kind that sounds like two voices speaking together. Some people ran outside instantly. Others started crying. Then Amaka opened her eyes wide. But those eyes, they didn't look like hers anymore. She pointed directly at one corner of the room and shouted, "He said she cannot marry him." Everybody turned, but there was nobody there. Only empty space. At that moment, the power went out. Darkness covered the house. Women started wailing. Some men rushed outside in fear, and in the middle of that terrifying confusion, Mama Nkiru shouted, "Nobody must leave this room." Then she looked at Chika. "Tell us the truth." The groom's hands began shaking. There's something I never told anyone." The room went silent again. Years ago, before meeting Amaka, Chika was engaged to another woman, a beautiful woman called Ada. But Ada died mysteriously 3 weeks before their wedding. People said it was sickness. Others said heartbreak, because rumor claimed Chika had fallen in love with Amaka before Ada died. And now, on another wedding day, another bride was lying unconscious. The room suddenly felt cursed. Mama Nkiru spoke slowly. The dead do not forget promises. Outside, thunder roared loudly across the village. Inside that room, nobody breathed properly anymore. Then Amaka suddenly sat up, slowly, stiffly, and smiled. But it was not her smile. It was Ada's voice that came out. "If I could not wear the white dress," she looked directly at Chika, "then nobody else will." The room exploded in panic. One woman fainted immediately. Another began speaking in tongues. Even the pastor that came for the wedding quietly moved closer to the door, because whatever was sitting inside Amaka's body was no longer ordinary. Amaka stood up from the bed slowly. Her feet touched the cold floor. Her head tilted strangely to one side. Then she laughed. A dry, painful laugh, the kind that makes your skin crawl. Chika could barely breathe. "Ada?" The voice answered immediately. "So now you remember me." Nobody moved. Mama Nkiru tightened her wrapper and stepped forward carefully. "You spirit," she said firmly. "This girl is innocent." Amaka's face changed instantly. "Innocent?" the voice screamed. "Was I guilty when they buried me?" The window slammed shut violently. Bam! Everybody screamed. Outside, the wedding musicians had already disappeared. Guests were running home. Some people even believed the bride had died. But inside that room, the real battle had just begun. Mama Nkiru put white chalk in a circle around the bed. Then she looked at Chika. "You caused this problem. Now speak the truth completely." The groom's lips trembled. For years, he had hidden the story, buried it deep, pretended it never happened. But secrets are like smoke in African stories. No matter how long you hide them, they always find a way out. Chika sat down heavily and finally confessed. Years ago, Ada loved him with everything she had. That woman sacrificed for him, paid his school fees when he lost his job, fed him when he had nothing, stayed beside him when everybody mocked his poverty. They were supposed to marry, but one evening, Chika traveled to Lagos for work and met Amaka. At first, it was friendship. Then, feelings entered. Before long, he was living two different lives. One woman building his future, another woman stealing his heart. When Ada discovered the truth, she broke completely. People said she became withdrawn, quiet, always crying. Then 3 weeks before the wedding, she was found dead in her room, poison. Till today, nobody knew whether it was suicide or heartbreak that killed her. When Chika finished speaking, silence filled the room. Even the air felt heavy. Then Amaka, or whatever was inside her, began crying. Not loud crying, soft, painful crying. Tears rolled down her cheeks slowly. "I waited for my wedding dress," Ada's voice whispered. "I waited every day." Chika covered his face in shame. "I'm sorry," but the spirit screamed instantly. Sorry does not wake the dead. The mirror beside the dressing table shattered violently. Crash! Everybody jumped back. Mama Nkiru raised her voice immediately. "Ada, listen to me." The crying stopped. "You are holding the wrong woman." Amaka's body became still. Mama Nkiru continued carefully. "This girl did not kill you." For the first time, the spirit hesitated. And then something unexpected happened. Amaka's real voice came out weakly. "Help me." Just one sentence, but it changed everything because now they understood something terrifying. Amaka was still alive inside there, fighting, trapped. Mama Nkiru quickly brought out a small wooden bell and began chanting ancient prayers. The pastor joined with Bible verses. Two worlds fighting together, tradition and Christianity. African homes know that combination very well. Sometimes, people fear both heaven and the unseen at the same time. The room grew hot suddenly. Sweat covered everybody's faces. Then, Amaka started shaking violently on the floor. Her voice kept changing. 1 minute Ada, 1 minute Amaka, back and forth. "Leave her. No, he belongs to me. Please, help me." At that moment, Amaka's mother fell to her knees crying. "My daughter did nothing. Please, leave my child alone." Even Chika began crying openly now. Not because of fear anymore, but because guilt finally caught him. Real guilt. The kind that follows a person for years quietly until one terrible day. Mama Nkiru suddenly asked for fire. Someone brought a small lantern. She dropped something inside. The flame turned blue instantly. People gasped. Then she looked directly at Chika. "There is only one way." "What way?" he asked quickly. "You must release the dead properly." The room waited. Mama Nkiru spoke slowly. "You promised Ada forever, but you buried her with silence and shame." Chika's eyes filled with tears. "What do I do?" "You will give her the wedding she never had." Everybody stared in confusion. That evening, the entire village gathered again, but this time there was no celebration, no music, no dancing, only silence. In the center of the compound stood a single empty chair, covered with white cloth. Mama Nkiru said the spirit must be honored before it could rest. Chika stood before everybody wearing his wedding suit, but instead of joy, the man looked broken. A framed picture of Ada was placed on the chair. Then, with shaking hands, Chika spoke, for the first time publicly. He apologized, not quickly, not proudly. He spoke like a man carrying years of regret. "I failed you," he whispered. Tears rolled down his face. "I was selfish, and because of that, you died unhappy." The wind suddenly blew across the compound. strong enough to shake the decorations. People looked around nervously. Then Chika did something nobody expected. He removed the wedding ring meant for Amaka and placed it beside Ada's picture. "I release you," he said softly. The wind stopped immediately. Everything became quiet. Too quiet. Then back inside the house, Amaka suddenly woke up, gasping for air, alive, free. Her mother screamed with joy and hugged her tightly. People began crying everywhere. Even Mama Nkiru smiled for the first time. But the story did not end there. Because when Amaka finally regained strength, she asked one question. A question that froze everybody again. She looked at Chika carefully and whispered, "Who was the woman standing beside you last night?" Chika frowned. "What woman?" Amaka's face slowly lost color. "The pregnant woman." And guess what? The wedding did not hold. Nobody even talked about food anymore. Nobody cared about the decorations. The music instruments remained abandoned outside in the dust. One by one, people quietly carried their chairs and went home. Some villagers said the compound was cursed. Others said the dead woman had only started her revenge. But the truth, nobody truly understood what happened in that house that day, especially Amaka. Because after waking up, after hearing everything, after remembering the strange pregnant woman she saw standing beside Chika the previous night, something inside her changed completely. The love she once carried in her chest no longer felt safe. It felt heavy, dangerous, like a road covered with hidden holes. For 3 days, she barely spoke. Women from the village visited her every morning, praying, advising, gossiping quietly outside. But Amaka remained distant, always staring at nothing, always thinking. Then finally, on the 4th evening, Chika came to see her. The man looked finished. No pride left, no joy left, only regret. He sat quietly in front of her for a long time before speaking. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," he whispered. Amaka said nothing. "I never wanted any of this to happen." Still, silence. Then, finally, she looked at him carefully, and for the first time since the nightmare began, she asked the question that had been burning inside her heart. Who was the pregnant woman? Chika's face lost color immediately. That silence alone frightened her. Then slowly, the man confessed again. Years ago, a few months before Ada died, Ada was pregnant. Amaka felt cold instantly. Chika's eyes filled with tears. "She never told anybody else," he said weakly. "Only me." The room became silent again. Outside, evening rain began falling softly on the zinc roofs. She lost a baby during the stress, during all the fighting, during everything I caused. Amaka closed her eyes slowly. At that moment, everything finally made sense. The pain, the anger, the spirit, the unfinished goodbye. Some wounds do not die easily, especially wounds mixed with betrayal. Chika moved closer carefully. "Amaka, please." But she gently stepped back. And that movement broke him completely. Because he finally understood. Love alone is not always enough. Sometimes, love arrives carrying too many ghosts. Amaka's voice was calm when she finally spoke. "I cannot marry what I do not understand." Tears rolled down Chika's face instantly. But she continued. "I fought to survive that day. I prayed to wake up. And now that I'm alive, I want peace." The rain outside grew heavier. For now, she whispered, I choose myself. That night, Chika walked out of the compound alone. No bride beside him, no music, no celebration. Only silence following him like a shadow. And in the village, people still talk about that wedding till today. Some swear they heard a woman crying near the old compound late at night. Others say they sometimes see a pregnant woman standing beneath the mango tree during rainfall, waiting, watching. And as for Amaka, she never wore that wedding dress again.